everybody, it's Mallory Hagan and you're here with Let's Talk. We are here today with Greg Louganis, diver, Olympian extraordinaire, author, and just all around awesome human being. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know who Greg is, let's let him give you a little bit of a rundown on his success.
Okay. Wow. It's hard to know where to start, right? Okay. Well, if we start with diving, my first Olympics was when I was 16. I was an Olympic silver medalist at age 16. And then I got 2 golds in '84, 2 golds in '88 for diving,
Right.
3-meter springboard and 10-meter platform.
What I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but for those of our viewers who weren't there to witness how amazing it was, obviously I wasn't there to witness how amazing it was.
No, right.
What did that feel like to know that you were only the second diver in history who had done that?
You know, it was a goal of mine. I didn't really, I wasn't focused on the results. You know, that's one thing, and that's one thing that I teach as athlete mentor for USA Diving, working with the kids that are preparing for Rio. Mm-hmm. So don't focus on the results, focus on the performance. So that was basically what my thought process was to focus on the performance. Everything else would take care of itself.
Right. Speaking of performance, I know that you, before you began diving, were actually dancing and tumbling and all of those things. So take us through that part of your childhood. Did you know, I mean, obviously since you did that first, was that something that you knew you wanted to do very young, was to perform?
Well, I started when I was a year and a half in dance and acrobatics, jazz and tap, dance and acrobatics. I got a partner when I was 3, and so we couldn't start competing until I was 6. So we were doing recitals and performing in plays and all this other stuff prior. And then my partner went into gymnastics, and I followed her into gymnastics. And then gymnastics was really my first love. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to make the Olympic team in gymnastics.
Interesting.
And then we had a pool built in our backyard. And so I was trying some of my gymnastics stunts off the diving board at home. My mother didn't want me to kill myself, so she got me lessons.
Got it.
And so first day out to lessons, they said, well, why don't you join the club team? And I was like, well, I'll think about it. I was pretty busy. Mm-hmm. So so that's kind of how it all kind of came together.
Being a dancer myself, I know we have that in common. I know specifically in the dance world, there just aren't a lot of little boys who have interest in that. What was it like in the 60s to be involved in those fields that were just not really thought of as something that young boys would be doing?
Right. I mean, it was interesting because I was involved in that before I even went to school. Mm. So, and getting that socialization, of other kids. And
you probably didn't even know that it was like a thing to be a boy.
I didn't know that it was a thing.
Yeah.
It was just like I was just in the room with all these girls, and we were having fun.
That says so much about your parents.
Yeah.
And your relationship
with
them.
my mom.
Your
my
mom. Your
yeah.
mom.
My dad at that time wasn't around a whole lot. He was working.
Got it.
Trying to provide for his family and all that.
Yeah. So she, I mean, that shows such an openness, I think, to letting you participate in what it is that you seem to be really good at.
Well, what happened, I have an older sister, so my mom didn't want this klutzy kid knocking down lamps, so, through the house, so she got her dance lessons, and I was a year and a half, and I would crawl under the chairs to sneak into the studio, and then I would mimic what they were doing. Yeah. And so when I was a year and a half, the teacher said, well, let's see what he can learn. And
that's awfully young for dance.
Yeah, that was
You must have
young.
been a smart little toddler. That relationship with your mom, how do you feel like that transitioned into the other things that you did in life with her, being so, sure, go do it?
Yeah, my mom was always incredibly supportive. I mean, I remember being at a Junior Olympics, my first Junior Olympics, it was like my first national competition. I think I was 10 or 11, and and I was having a really rough time because I was letting the pressure get to me. And so it was right at a break, they made a cut, and I barely made the cut. And she said, okay, what's going on? I said, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to disappoint everybody. And so I was so racked with, guilt about performing and, and not performing up to my capability. So she said, you know what, it doesn't matter, just as long as you're having fun. That's all I care about. And so, she really taught me unconditional love and also appreciation, for, what I was able to do.
I think that in any field, people can let the pressure get to them. So when you were that young, you started diving when you were 9?
When I was 8.
8.
Yeah.
So at 16, I mean, you'd only, I would say only, 8 years, that was half your life at that point. But what did success look like to you? Were you able to carry that attitude and mindset always? Was success just go out, perform, and have fun? Or what did it look like at that age, success?
Well, it was interesting because in preparation for this 1976 Olympic Games, I was diving with Dr. Sammy Lee, who won Olympic gold medals in 48 and 52. He coached Bobby Webster, another U.S. diver, to win 2 gold medals. I think it was 60, 64. And then Klaus DiBiase from Italy was going for his 3rd Olympic gold medal, which would break his and Bobby Webster's record. So my sole purpose, I started diving with Dr. Sammy Lee when I was 14, 15. And so I moved in with him in preparation for the Olympic trials. And so everything was about beating Klaus. So that was my sole purpose on earth, was to
that would have been
beat
success.
Klaus. Yeah. So that's what the focus was. That's what all the training was all about, was how I was going to beat Klaus. And so when I showed up in 76 to the Olympic Games, and I missed my 9th dive in the finals. And so that was really disappointing. And then I was a silver medalist. And so I thought, I viewed that as a failure, that I let everybody down because I was supposed to beat Klaus, prevent Klaus. That sole purpose. So so it was a very confusing time because I was only 16. I was going back to high school after being at the Olympics, and so it was a rough time for me.
Yeah. What was high school like? What was it like to be training for the Olympics and also be a high schooler?
It was interesting because I don't think you'd have it in this day and age, but the women's gymnastics team recruited me to help coach them because I was the only one who could hand spot, when they're doing the difficult tricks, and then I also was coaching the men's and women's diving team, as a freshman.
Wow.
When I first came in. So that was really my salvation. I mean, that was where I felt comfortable, accepted.
Community and
yeah.
school.
So that was wonderful, and it was usually all the gals on the team. It was like they kind of included me. Because I didn't really feel that I had my academics because I'm dyslexic. I had a difficult time reading, and so I didn't learn about dyslexia until I was in college. I was given dyslexia as a vocabulary word in my freshman English class. And I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you had never even noticed in high school that was, like, you had an issue learning because you couldn't figure it out? Or
well, it was, I would read was as saw as was.
Right.
That's what how I would see it. But I couldn't express myself. What I was
what was happening? You couldn't express
perceptually I was seeing. So so I was labeled lazy, didn't apply myself by my teachers, and then I was called stupid, dummy, retard. And
which is such a juxtaposition of what you were doing in your outside life, which was by no definition lazy at all. You're working very hard towards a goal. So that I feel like somebody at some point should have been like, hey, these two things don't make sense.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's interesting because it was. You find a lot of elite athletes, you find that they're dyslexic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn Jenner, and Jackie Joyner, and there's a lot of dyslexics that are very creative, and a lot of individuals that have had great amount of success in sports.
What an interesting fact.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So high school, college, Olympics, all of those things, by everyone's definition, success. I know that you are a very shy person.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like in those moments to, I mean, because success comes with recognition and
Right.
you know, all the things that everyone associates with some sort of fame, and particularly Olympians, the press and all of that. What was it like then to have to put on that face for the interviews and for the media and all of that? I mean, that was a daily basis at that point, probably. So
Well,
what was that like?
You know, it was interesting because, I mean, I talk to reporters. I speak, and, you know, I do all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally have caught me doing in the past. But, you know, it was, you know, and I even had my 6th grade teacher, Kathy Hepler, she wrote to me and said, well, whatever happened to that shy little kid that I taught in 6th grade? Well, the shy little kid's still there. But I learned how to, you know, to have more confidence in, you know, in my presentation, and you know, you know, it's still there, you know, that shy kid. But I know that you know, there are certain things that are expected of me, and also have a sense of responsibility too. You know, I think that kind of helps push me beyond my own perceived limitations.
Yeah, well, that recognition, you are a very giving person, an advocate, an activist in so many different ways. So that recognition leads to then, like you said, that responsibility to raise awareness for the several issues that you do. When I think about you on a personal level, and then think about you, the person that I saw speaking at the Point Foundation Gala, it kind of made me laugh because there's such a difference in your normal interaction versus your public persona. Not in a bad way, just I can tell that there's a pick me up, and I think that a lot of people who probably are in the public eye have to sort of put on a little bit, and you have to find that energy, and that can be hard. I know. Yeah. Are you religious?
I would categorize myself as spiritual. Not religious.
And where does that spirituality play in all of life's happenings for you? Where do you feel like you draw that energy from?
Well, I think it's just what you said. It's energy. So you can use a lot of times, like when I'm doing appearances, speaking engagements, doing events, then I have to be careful, you know, that I take the time to rest. You know, because that is really key. You know, because when you're out there and you're on, there's certain things that are expected of you, so you have to be able to deliver, and you know, and also that energy kind of feeds you too.
Yeah.
So it's oftentimes when it's working, then it's reciprocal.
I once heard someone say, specifically when you're in a position of giving and speaking and shaking hands constantly, and pictures and everything is for someone else. I heard someone say sometimes you have to fill up your own cup.
Right.
What do you do to fill up your own cup besides rest? I think everybody needs rest.
Yeah, working out. I mean, I try to get to the gym. That is my gift to myself.
Yeah.
You know, when I do a yoga practice, then that is my gift to myself. Meditation. There's, you know, all sorts of things, and also, I mean, being with my dog.
Yeah. I know that there was a period in life where you, based on your documentary Back on Board, I know that there was a period in your life where you didn't feel that you had success, and there was a hardship. Take us through that timeline a little bit, how things fell off, and do you feel now that you are back, and do you feel that success again? Do you feel that it's here?
Well, it's been an interesting history because I was diagnosed HIV positive 6 months prior to the Olympic Games. I was competing in a country at that time. There was not a whole lot of compassion surrounding HIV. There wasn't a whole lot of education around HIV. We were going to compete in the Olympics in Seoul, Korea, which was a country that you weren't allowed to go into in 1988, you know, if you were HIV positive. So yeah, so there was a lot of things that were surrounding that. Where we were at with LGBT, human rights. I've seen so many transitions, and I think that my life kind of mirrored that. The public awareness. I was probably kind of at the forefront of coming out.
For sure.
HIV positive, gay man living with HIV, and in '95. And so, people were still dying.
Right.
And even Random House, who was publishing Breaking the Surface, made my co-author Eric Marcus sign an agreement that he would have the book done within 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Because they were afraid I was going to die.
Wow.
And so, and now, look where we're at. Here I am,
so much progress.
So many years later, and I'm still here, and I take my meds in the morning, take my meds in the evening, and go about the business of living.
Do you feel that you're back on top? You're speaking, and you're doing all of these wonderful things, and you're nominated for a Sports Emmy.
I know, nominated for a Sports Emmy. That's more of a testament to Will and Cheryl, the director and the producers, because they did an incredible job. They moved in with me for 3 years, but I had no idea what they were going to put together. Yeah. And they put together, I think, something really special. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
So one of the other things that I am so excited for is the Wheaties box.
Yes.
So can you give us a little bit of the background of Wheaties? And I know it's in the documentary, but why you weren't on the box in the first place, and how it came about today that you are?
Well, it was funny because I didn't pay attention to those things when I was diving. That wasn't really on my radar. I was focused on my performance, my diving. I didn't look at the other stuff.
Come on, you didn't notice that you weren't on the Wheaties box? And
No. You know what? It was interesting because when I went on book tour with Breaking the Surface, all of these people started bringing Wheaties boxes with my picture on it, and I thought that was really weird. And then,
you're like,
yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. And so then when we were doing the documentary, then we were at the International Swimming Hall of Fame. And so they have this whole hallway full of Wheaties boxes of all the aquatic athletes that were on Wheaties boxes. And I'm like, oh, I'm not up there. And I found it really, really interesting. And so then it didn't dawn on me until then, how iconic the Wheaties box was. And what a tremendous honor. And it's funny because a lot of people say, well, it's about time. I said, you know what? It means more now to me now than it would have then. Because had it happened back then, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But now, accepting me, I feel like I'm embraced as a whole person. Because I'm a gay man living with HIV, open about who he is, married to, his soulmate, it just, that's success.
And that definition, I'm sure, has evolved for you.
Yeah.
What will the next, if in 10 years, what will success look like, do you think? What's your plan of action moving forward?
Yeah.
What can we
really
expect?
Well, my first plan of action is, and goal is to have a house, have a home. So that is kind of in the works and something that I'm working towards. And it's interesting because I've been there and done that, and in actually a rather nice way. I lived in Malibu for 29 years and then sold that house, and now this is kind of a new step in a different direction, and I want to downsize it because it's not about bigger, more, and it's not about that. It's really about quality.
Well, with that, I know you're looking into a home and that being the next goal. I also know, as we mentioned earlier, that you are mentoring now and you're back in the diving world. If people didn't know that you left. What does mentoring do for you?
It's really, It's really wonderful. I mean, because we just share ideas, thoughts, journeys, and just to see them kind of flourish. I mean, and it's not that they have to win gold medals. That's not
The journey.
my work with them. But the work is the journey. You're right, and it really is also preparing for life after. Like we have Abby Johnson, who is pre-med at Duke, and so we sat down and she was talking about what her priorities would be because her coach moved to Bloomington. I was like, you usually follow your coach, and so she had to make a decision. Do I follow my coach or do I really follow my career?
Life after.
Life after, and she chose life after. She's still going to be shooting for the Olympic team. She's going to be at the Olympic trials and trying to get on the Olympic team, either individual and synchro. So, she's still in there, but she's maintained a priority. And I think that helps so much in your overall performance.
Yeah, being able to take the lessons that you've learned and help other people not make them or push them in the direction of not
Don't make these mistakes.
Don't make these mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing whether or not that sports comes about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.